Hello, ladies and gentle people. It's Tuesday, October 12th, 2010. This is Day 9 Daily number 198. 199 will be tomorrow. 200 will not be on Thursday because I'll be at MLG in Washington, D.C. And then on Monday will be number 200, which will not be a special episode. It'll just be Funday Monday. Episode 203 that'll be on Thursday. That'll be the money one. Yeah. Now, normally at this stage in the daily, this is where I say something goofy or funny, or do like some little wrap up of an exciting times. But instead, I just want to say that I wasn't happy with how yesterday's daily went, like at all. In fact, I was significantly bummed out about it, because I think many of you know that I went to Comic-Con. And for ESL, for the Intel Extreme Masters American Championship, and like I took a red eye there and back, so I was like really out of it and tired. And when I selected the replays, because I watched maybe 40 or 50 of you fine folks replays, I generally watch replays for about 6 or 7 hours on Monday, just trying to like choose the best of the best. And I think I chose some pretty decent replays, but in retrospect, there were 3 or 4 I probably should have chosen. I don't know. Well, it's just my brain was not like working. I was tired. I mean, this is the experience that I had for Monday. So like, imagine if you let's imagine we're all beautiful women. All right, we have huge speech. We have to choose this elegant dress. We have to make an hour-long speech in front of a huge group of people. So we're trying to find the right dress, trying to make sure we like look okay. We got to look presentable. We got to look professional, and we got to make the speech kind of funny and charming. And then like you're set, you're ready, you're under deadline, you did it. You step out on stage, and as you're walking onto stage, you go, "Holy fuck, I'm hideous!" Like you look down at your dress, you're like, "What am I wearing? It's like made of paper mache. Why did I think this was a good idea?" And you get up there, and your first joke falls flat, and you're just like, 55 minutes to go. Like that was my experience on Monday. Because like I'm not gonna lie, I know if I like try to be funny and it's like not funny. I know because I'm there at the time, right? It's not like I'm shooting in the dark. I was just like my brain was not functioning. Because to be honest, this is kind of how I do the daily. I do prep work. Like I'll download replays. I will watch through them. Like for instance, for Newbie Tuesday, I download a bunch of replays, and I try to get a set that seems reasonable for the problems at hand. Like I have a few selected today. But then the rest of the time, I just trust myself. For instance, today, my notes just say, talk about yesterday's daily, talk about how you prep for the usual daily. And then I just sort of say, he'll fill in the rest. And I try to do that as well with the humor. I don't really prepare very much. It just sort of happens. But if I'm exhausted, it doesn't kind of, So I don't know. I just felt bad. I'm sorry. I feel bad. I feel really bad. But fortunately, you guys are like the nicest people in the universe. So that kind of helps a lot. Like, Jesus, people at Reddit. Oh my God, the people at Reddit. I saw those threads, Reddit people. Oh my God, you guys are nice. And since the idea for one unit only in a 3v3 or 4v4 is just too good, I'm going to do that again coming up. And it's going to be like an encore presentation. We're going to take some that we didn't choose beforehand. So if any of you didn't get selected and any of you have some awesome stuff, continue submitting because that will happen in the future. Without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and go into the Newbie Tuesday reps for today. And I'm just going to do just sort of a relaxed, low-key daily. As you know, as you can probably tell by my voice, I still have not recovered fully from my illness. So I just slept all afternoon, and I think that was the wise thing to do. So the preparation isn't as nearly in-depth as I like for this sort of thing, but, we're just going to kind of do a nice, relaxed, easy, casual sort of daily about Banshees, how we deal with Banshees, how we learn to hate Banshees, and how we want to try to unhate them. So, just as a brief little beginning thing, I'm midway through a game between a player named Nyx, who submitted this game, and a Taran player named Hulk. And, I mean, there's a few things we can note right off the bat, just identifying that this isn't, like, super tip-top level play. In particular, there's getting the Forge and the Cannon and the Observer, like, that early is not quite necessary. Getting this many missile turrets is not quite that necessary. But at the same time, this replay, the start of this replay, highlights what I think is one of the most important aspects about Banshees, which is that people undervalue detection in this game. They just kind of do. And part of the reason why is that in StarCraft 2, there's a lot of really good stuff to spend your money on. So, for instance, in this game, look, here's the Observer coming out, and the Robo facility is like the awesomest structure in the game for most Protosses. They love it, right? So they make an Observer because they hate playing in the dark, but then they get an Immortal because Immortals are awesome, and then they get a Colossus because the Colossus is awesome, and then here comes the Scout. So Nyx does manage to avoid these missile turrets. And he's sneaking in here, and then he sees the Banshees, and has to be careful. Hulk has placed turrets like everywhere in his base. Unfortunately, he can actually see the Observer, because things can generally see a little bit longer than they shoot. And it ends up dying quite sadly in a tragic, tragic, tragic death. But meanwhile, back in the base of Nyx, Nyx is still only just now getting ready to finish that Colossus. And it's so tempting, given this mix, to want to continue to make stuff out of the robotics facility. Like to continue making Colossus, to continue making the Immortal. But as we see, this is the sort of risk that you run when you are low on detection, right? A bunch of Banshees just swing in, you're totally underprepared. Nyx doing what he can. He's retreating to the Photon Cannon. There's the Observer coming out, but already, this is a just very, very awful position to be in. It's very uncomfortable if you are Nyx. I mean, the Observer is going to come out. These Banshees could just punish all of these Stalkers really, 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 really hard if they wanted to. And, I will say, let's ignore for the time being that... Let's ignore for the time being that Banshees are imbalanced fucking bullshit. All right, let's just ignore that for a moment, and let us just take the assumption that Banshees are totally balanced, 100% absolutely fair, and we're not going to worry about them. In Brood War, or actually I don't even need to talk about Brood War. In StarCraft 2, if we think about the Dark Templar, yeah, it's cloaked. Yeah, if you don't have detection, it can kill your whole worker line if you're underprepared, but it's melee. So that means that we can do little things like we can wall ourselves in. If we see the DT, we can kind of go, oh my god, and hold position units at our ramp. It's kind of reasonable, but again, Banshees fly and they have range. So it's not so much that they are unfair, but it is that we really need to be detection aware. So the only thing I really want to say remaining left on this game is that in general, players are going to need to start focusing on these core gateway units, Stalkers and Zealots, to stay alive, instead of relying on Colossi and Immortals to stay alive. Or if we are playing Taran, we can't really just go mass medevac all the time. Like if we see a player who is going for Dark Templar or for Banshee, we kind of need to get some sort of detection up at a reasonable pace, right? If you're Zerg, and Zerg might be the most guilty of this, because Zergs will get one Overseer, they'll run into their opponent's base and say, perfect. And then when the Banshees show up, what does Zerg say? They say, where's that Overseer? Where did he go? And they spam around the map trying to find him, or they just go, oh yeah, detection, like V, and like spam all their overlords. That's not exactly the way that you want to do it. So, in terms of streamlining, let's just think, I want to think about just Protoss and Zerg right now. Against Banshees, Protosses, you want to get 2 or 3 Observers. Just do it. Get your first observer out, poke him to his base while a second observer is building. I promise you, even if he isn't going Banshees, 2 observers is gonna be really damn useful. I was actually talking to Derubi at IEM, and he's just saying, yeah, because in this game you only make 1 observer a game, right? Because that's what Protosses do. They make an observer, and then it's time to only make Colossus. And anytime you say, well, maybe you should get another observer, they go, but I make Colossus, I want to make more. Not exactly the position you want to be in. So cut back on those, get some more observers, and just get an extra gateway. Zealots and Stalkers are more than enough to hold off early pushes adequately. It is actually quite easy to hold off most early pushes adequately. So there is a replay here that I really wanted to look at. This is the first actual example replay. Where is it as I tab through? Again, this isn't as organized as I would have liked. I slept all afternoon. I'm sick. Damn it. Whatever. Just doing a nice relaxed daily. If we have to go a little bit longer to hit all the points we want, we will. I'm not too concerned. I don't have anywhere to be this evening except back in my comfy bed hanging out with Manfred. So we have Raven, the Taran player, who will be making Banshees this game. We have Mullet Ben, which just really strikes my fancy as an ID. I think that is just cool. So we have Mullet Ben spawning down here. Talking about the map, Raven really liked that new maps for the win. He just gave it the capital LOL. And I don't know if about you, but like I sometimes, after a session of Starcraft, using the tab key, I will occasionally hit that caps lock, and someone will be like, "Hey Sean, how are you?" And I'll be like, "Fine, how are you?" Just like scream right back at them in all caps lock. It's quite brutal. It's tough to deal with. And multi-Ben and Platinum, Raven giving the Frown Town. Now, we're going to briefly ignore the legitimacy of Mullet Ben's opening. I will state for the record, I've actually seen this quite often. See, it's a very fast gas pool build, but we get a very fast Evo chamber as well, and then we get the incredibly fast +1 upgrade. And I've specifically seen this with Baneling Bust. Weirdly enough, I've seen this more against Protoss opponents. People will do this, like I'll random Protoss, and then some guy will come up here with like a really fast +1 Evo chamber, so his Baneling Busts are even better. But either way, so this is an opening. I would say this is fairly cheesy. Doesn't necessarily have the most long-term potential. But there's the SCV dying nonetheless. And what's nice about this game is we can ignore the opening, because what's so key about this, and why the Banshee that's going to be popping out of this is going to be so problematic, is that this is going to be a classic case of overreacting. I mean, Mullet Ben will very clearly see that there's a Banshee coming out, and overreacting is a very common and easy tactic. Or not easy tactic. A very common and easy trap to fall into. So here's the Baneling Bust coming up. We see that the +1 upgrade is done, so if we go over here to our Banelings, we see that they do an insane amount of damage. They do 85 damage to structures with this plus upgrade. It's pretty awesome. We're even trying to build some bunkers here. So speeding up, and here's the bust. Kind of going in the wrong order, but either way, breaks in, doesn't really do the most damage in the first little push. But that's okay, there's some more Zerglings here. Speeding it up. Alright, cool. And there's the Banshee now building. It was supply blocked initially, and the Zerglings are going to wreak havoc here. It's going to be just terrible. This is going to be very rough for Raven. So I think everyone will note Taran is not in a good position. Raven doing some micro. Perfect. And has 4 SCVs. Good. Now, obviously, Multi-Ben saw that there were Banshees coming out, got a Spore Crawler, has just now finished his expansion, has a little bit of too much money in the bank, but is very clearly in a dominating position. Now, we're about to see where the overreaction begins, and this replay is perfect because it demonstrates how it's like the perfect example of how overreacting can botch everything. A lot of times, in fact, almost all the time, the reason someone will not be able to defend against build X is because their macro is off. You know, for instance, they'll say something like, how do I hold off a Marine Marauder push? Should I go Banelings? Should I go Roaches? Should I go Zerglings? And the answer is, pretty much any of those will work, assuming you're macroing well. It's not a trick. It's not like, oh yeah, if he's going Marines, you just get Banelings and you're done. Good players can micro them quite well in small numbers. You just need a lot more stuff, and your timing needs to be really crisp. Sometimes people, for instance, there were games that I saw for this Newbie Tuesday where somebody just wasn't getting a layer fast enough as Zerg, so they wouldn't get Overseers. And I would say something like, well, you need to time it a little bit better so that you can get those Overseers up, you know, like just general playing well. However, this has nothing to do with mechanics, fundamentals, playing well. It's just decision making. That's why I'm choosing this replay. Ignoring all mechanics, I think we can clearly see that, you know, money's at 800, Raven's going to be at 4 food right here, Zerg should be an advantage. There are things Mullet Ben could have done better, but we just want to isolate the decision making. So here's the first set of things I want to point out. What is the point of this layer? This is what I call double defending, right? We've seen that there is Banshees coming out. We've seen that he is almost dead. What is the only thing that can really affect us? This Banshee that I'm looking at right here. Not the 1 tank plus 3 Marines, 2 of which are almost dead. This is not going to be a threat. Honestly, this ground force is enough to deal with any threat that's going to be coming at us at any point. But this layer, I'm wondering what the point of this layer is. Most of the time, this is because the person says, oh my god, he is getting detection. Oh crap, I guess I need to be getting some sort of Overseer up. Now, Multi-Ben, this is one mistake that he does make. He ends up throwing down a lot of Zerglings, but we can even ignore that. I would prefer that these would be drones. Would prefer that quite a bit, but in particular, we're a little bit low on queens. A lot of people know that the queens can definitely be an issue. And so they will end up constructing those. They know that that can help out. Yep, there's the queen coming out. It's a little bit late, but fortunately this Banshee doesn't go directly for this hatchery. It ends up pulling back here. And we're going to start to see some of the issues that arise right about now, where Mullet Ben is trying to pull back, and he does so adequately, alright. And then, see, the layer's done, and notice how we're kind of cramped for minerals, and that, again, this layer can't really do that much. Even if all these Zerglings were drones instead, they wouldn't really have mined enough money for us to necessarily be able to do quite that much. And we can already see right there, that is why we really want to get a lot of queens up fast. And also, most importantly, we want to connect these 2 bases with creep. I cannot emphasize how super, unbelievably, absurdly important connecting your bases with creep is in order to deal with Banshees, because queens are probably going to be your most reliable form of anti-air. So you need to have the mobility of those queens up. Definitely need those. So here's where the sort of crisis begins occurring. There's a Spore Crawler that is going down right now. I like the fact that Mullet Ben has not unburrowed this Spore Crawler yet. That's a very easy way to get your Spore Crawler killed. But this is going to sound like very, very little, but notice that the Spore Crawler is flush against these minerals. Should be back 1 space. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But this Banshee is doing quite a significant amount of damage. And this isn't the end of the decision-making aspect, right? Mullet Ben is still, I think, clearly ahead. I mean, 4 SCVs still mining. Is another Banshee coming out? Yeah, of course, because it is the Banshee daily. And now 2 queens are out, and Mullet Ben should be fine. Now, this guy does not need to be going down. This is, again, the fear that happens when you are behind because of some sort of Banshee harass. You build to defend the thing that you just got done holding off. And look, there's the Spore Crawler going down. Now, a Spore Crawler at this base, I kind of get. 2 Spore Crawlers at this base, I don't get at all. Are you kind of starting to see that if we have 2 Queens up, and he has 1 Banshee, where's the 1 Banshee? Oh yeah, not even done. If we have 2 Queens up, we're fine. We're absolutely, totally fine. Now, I mean, like Zerg has all the knowledge. He went into his base. He saw that there was one starport, 1 tech lab. He has all the information. He doesn't see like 2 tech labs. 2 starports with tech lab. He doesn't see a lot of SCVs mining that could support said starports with tech lab. Just sees the 1 starport. So with 2 Queens up, now that we've killed a Banshee, we know that not that many Banshees are coming. But because it can be so rattling to have that 1 Banshee have done so much damage, this sort of thing happens. Now, anytime you have suffered some heavy losses, just completely cut gas. Money is going to be the restricting resource at this point. So Mullet Ben needs to invest heavily in making a lot more drones, and really not so much on the gas front. Moreover, look what Mullet Ben is doing. After he has just held off this Banshee harassment, he is sprinting to get the Spire. That's a very common mistake. People who get under some intense, crazy harassment, they had some future plan in mind, but they rush to get that plan up. So to recap what's happening here, oh my god, let me delay my impersonation of Mullet Ben for the time being. So Mullet Ben is going, all right, I am going to tech to layer. I'm going to get a Spire and harass him with Mutalisks like a normal Zerg would. That's my plan. And then, oh my god, Banshees harassed me. See, now I'm returning back to the impersonation. Oh my god, Banshees harassed me. And he did damage. Okay, it's done. All right, cool. Defend, and they get the Spire. Go. And they try to get it up really fast. Like if you try to plant your Spire down at 6 minutes with your normal build, but you've been harassed, and it's 6 minutes and 20 seconds, your brain goes, 20 seconds late on the Spire. In reality, you can easily delay that by a minute or 90 seconds. You want to get your drones up. Because Mullet Ben, even after that harassment, was still being just fine. But then came the, oh my god, Spore Crawlers need to defend. This was a little bit unnecessary. One of these is maybe okay. We could have, for instance, gotten an Overseer with this Overlord instead and been okay. But one of these I can completely understand. But then now Mullet Ben is sprinting back to get to his old plan. Sprinting back to it. Look at the guys who were placed back in gas to support this Spire. The double gas at the expansion. Goodness, I need to have enough gas to support my Spire units. Here's the really fast Spire. This is completely reasonable to have 4 gas quickly on 2 bases if you are pretty much rushing for some sort of Spire tech. That's completely reasonable. But not after you've suffered some harass where you are low on worker count. Look at how low Mullet Ben is. In fact, in the main, I will actually back up a little bit because I didn't highlight this at the time. But Mullet Ben had almost no guys mining. Yeah, look right this. 5 guys mining. 5 guys mining minerals. Very common after harassment. People do not pull guys off gas to go back to mining minerals. I mean, gas is what lets you do teching. It's what lets you do all the fancy stuff you want to do all game long. But minerals are what let you do things quickly. If you do not have a lot of minerals, you cannot do much of anything. So you want to have lots of minerals to get back on track. Very important that you do not sprint back to your plan. It's cool to just chill and make drones for a few production cycles and not stress that much about it. So Raven has, amazingly enough, concocted a little bit of an army here. And here is yet another little decision that can go awry. I am rewinding a pretty decent amount in this replay because, one, I'm not nearly as focused as I ordinarily am because I'm sick. I'm sorry. I'm out of it. But these Zerglings are not in an optimal position. Imagine a game where your Taran opponent just hasn't moved out for a little while and actually hasn't done really anything to you. You've got to do your build as cleanly as you have always wanted. You always put a guy at the front in that spot. You always do. But if a Banshee comes in and you just go, holy fucking Banshee, and you're like, not prepared, and you start like clicking around. It's always kind of funny to see people's APM sort of just kind of chill, and they see the Banshee, and it's like, duh! It spikes up. And in that moment, you get tunnel vision. You forget little things like, why is a Zergling not at the front? I mean, look at this... Look at the vision from Mullet Ben, right? He is still trying to get back on his plan. He is very low on minerals. There's the little rally. Okay, he sees these two guys. And Mullet Ben is not actually looking at his mini-map. This isn't... if this were an ordinary old game and these Banshees weren't harassing, I would say that this is a mistake of fundamentals. In a fundamental sense, you should be looking at your mini-map at all points in time. But what is a much bigger factor is not that, oh, your fundamentals are off, you're not good at looking at the mini-map. It's that, oh my god, this Banshee is taking up so much of my focus and freaking me out that I kind of forgot. And look, Mullet Ben first notices the army when it is right outside his base. Very, very, very obnoxious. So, of course... tries to do the surround, doesn't get the best surround, just sort of like attacks in there. And now, oh my gosh, would normally be making Zerglings right now, but alas, 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 my minerals are so low because I didn't pull guys off mining. I tried to sprint right back to production. I'm in rough shape. There's some Zerglings getting produced. And this is always a sign that you tried to rush back to your plan if you have way too much gas. Always a good sign. I want to just say that a couple times. A good sign that you got harassed, defended, and then tried to sprint back to your plan too quickly is that you have too much gas. Too much gas signifies that you tried to sprint back to your game plan too damn quickly. So often I will say things, and, well, actually, this is true all the time. I will give an explanation. Strategy X is good because of Y. And people go, yes, very good, I understand. But then when they look at their own replays, they go, I don't understand what I should be looking for. Look for too much gas. Probably trying to tech too quickly. Here's too much gas. In action, there's Raven. Stimming. Mullet Ben probably is shocked at this point. Zergling's popping out, doing a good amount of damage. And then, at this point, Raven actually slowly just swings ahead, and there's the Banshee doing more obnoxiousness. Now, I'm going to close this replay and just note one thing. You heard me say here that the Spore Crawler here, I don't like this position too much. I would put it back one space. I will show you exactly why. I have actually done a sample game myself between me and the illustrious JP McDaniel, whom I do the little co-cast with, who I'll actually be co-casting with this weekend at MLGDC, which I'm very, very excited about. Haven't gotten a chance to cast with JP in a while, and he's a cool brah. This is me. Oops, forgetting to rally because I'm awful. And this is JP. I just told JP to get Spore Crawlers very quickly, and I'm going to be doing an ultra-fast Banshee build. This is just a little test case. Notice the gas on 9, and then we're going to be doing a barracks on 10. This is a good build to do on Desert Oasis if you ever want like the ultra fast Banshee. I know how to do it to get a fast Banshee. I don't know how to do it to get fast Cloak. And then see, there's the barracks coming down, and then there's the factory. And at this point, you can actually squeeze in an orbital command, barely. But I decided I wanted to get a second gas, because I needed the gas for Cloak. So I'm putting guys in there, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I need a depot so I can make a Banshee. Yep, there's my starport going down. So I have 3 guys mining minerals, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I'm trying to tech too quickly. So I back up, get the starport, whomp, and there's my Banshee coming out. Perfect. And then I will end up having Cloak here in a moment. Yeah, getting Cloak. Now, I told JP to make 1 Spore colony, and he made like 50. So hats off to him. So, now I'm going to make the following point. Some of you are of the opinion that you just need to get a layer fast. You need the Overseer because you need that mobile detection. You need to be able to see the Banshees moving around. Because remember Nyokin, the famous Brood War American player on EG, said, I dislike that in StarCraft 2 you need 8 turrets to cover your base because Banshees are so annoying. people tend to think in that fashion. That, well, I don't want to be one of those guys who makes 8 spore colonies. Therefore, I must get the layer really, really quickly. But I want to point out the following thing. Spore crawlers, or if you stay on hatch tech and get a lot of queens and rely on spore crawlers, you don't actually have to get as many as you might think. So JP, I'm trying to get him to position his spore crawlers, because I remember I was going to do this example, but I'm like, I don't want to mess up and like lose everything, JP. So he burrows his spore crawler. There he goes. He's digging. He's digging. Now let's go to the JP cam. All right, cool. So here is my Banshee. Now note that this has a range of 7. Pretty freaking damn long range, right? Here's his other spore crawlers there. So here's my Banshee. And, oh, I'm getting shot. This is about as close as you can get, right? But notice what happens when I cloak here in a second. Yep. He can still see me cloaked. He can still see me cloaked. In fact, if I had a queen position here, I could wander up and hit this Banshee that is cloaked. Look, he can still see me cloaked as I'm getting farther away. He only can just now see me uncloaked. I think this is like a range of 10 or so away that he can actually see me. Yeah, and see, look at that absurd distance right there. That's actually quite substantial. And actually, you can't quite see this. Let me actually use these little buttons. He is like just barely off this ledge when he is out of vision radius for JP here. So I have actually been delaying my layer quite a bit comfortably. Like, I'll see Banshees, and I will not really need that many spore crawlers because of the fact that you can just see at a reasonable distance. That fact is going to be a little bit more useful for Tarans and Zergs because Protosses will not rely so much on cannons. Excuse me. But for instance, in Taran vs. Taran, as we saw at the Intel Extreme Masters American Championships between Phoenix and Drewby, between Phoenix and QXC, Phoenix was building just one turret in his mineral line. And whenever a Banshee would get close, he would still be able to see in such a wide radius that he could pick it off with his marine count. It wasn't that necessary. In a sense, he wasn't planning the turret down to say, I want to kill the Banshee. He was planning the turret down to say, I want to detect the Banshee. So I would say that's a little point, the idea that you can see and detect farther that you can actually hit. But it's still significant enough that I want to note it because I want to help you guys save your monies. So where is another little game here? I think this is right, between Ghost Hawk and Bobby Tizzle. Now, before I go in this game, I just want to briefly recap. In my semi-exhaustion delirium, I want to make sure that I'm not getting ahead of myself. Again, sorry, I haven't been kind of today and yesterday, but you guys are very nice to me. Very nice. It's relaxed, low-key daily. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. I was just like working way too hard. Because I remember, like, I got off that flight on Sunday, and I was like, okay, I gotta re-record all those VODs, and I'm like sick. I'm like taking medication. 2 people at IEM even gave me cold medicine. 2 viewers, which by the way, I remember, and you guys were awesome. They even brought me chocolate milk and a donut. Yeah, chocolate milk and a muffin. Excuse me. But like, oh man. Yeah, and I was just trying to do too much of the, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to be the king of the world. And then today I was like, screw that. I'm sleeping. So again, a little bit underprepared daily. But just want to let you know what's going on in my life, guys. You're my pals. Where were we? Let's do a brief recap of what we have learned. First of all, it's so important to note that you're probably going to undervalue detection. And you're undervaluing detection because you want to get fancier units. Zergs want to spend that gas on mutas and upgrades, not overseers. Protosses want to spend that time and gas on immortals and colossi, not observers. Taran buddies want to spend that gas on medevacs and upgrades, not ravens. But, I want to let you know you should rely more on those core units like Zerglings and Roaches, or Zealots and Stalkers, or just your general ground units and macro as Taran, and kind of reinforce that with the Raven. Very, very important. We talked a little bit about the decision-making against Banshees, how important it is not to overreact, and mostly how important it is to not feel obligated to sprint back to your usual game plan. It's cool to just pull guys off mining gas and go back to mining a little bit of minerals. Actually, that's really key that you do that. And of course, we spoke briefly about how you can rely on the range of detection of spore crawlers or turrets, so that way your queens or marines can do the actual killing. So I've been favoring that quite a bit more as the Zergy pieces. So we have Ghost Hawk, he's our Protos buddy, he's the Submitor. And by the way, this is the end of the games that I wanted to select. So I have a few random ones that we're going to just look at, just to see the sort of things that people submitted. It looks like Taran's planting that barracks a little bit late, is not quite making things out of his command center. And in this game, what we're going to see is not at all some sort of craziness with, you know, like an ultra-fast Banshee gets in the main and he's suddenly not prepared. It's literally going to be a straight push at the front. Just a straight good old push. Ghost Hawk creating kind of a semi-wall here is an interesting little formation. I actually don't mind that too much. It's actually pretty cool. We can easily plant a wall off there and have like enough room to warp things in on high ground. Now Bobby Tizzle is making some Marines. The classic not ralliedness. And it looks like Ghost Hawk is going for a very, very fast Colossus. Again, the very standard little technique, but I want to emphasize, don't get friggin' hooked on your Colossi. Rely a little bit more on Zealots and Stalkers. They are awesome units. This is like the downfall of so many Protosses, just that they are Robo-Bay hungry. They get to a point where they could expand and add another gateway and be fine, but instead they get a Robo and they want to expand, and then they're not making any Warp Gate units, and they have like one Colossus and 5 guys, and like they then try to get the next Colossus and they still can't make gateway units, and they end up brokies for a very long time. I mean, like for instance right here, I'm going to just hold my Warp Gate over this production right now. And notice that we can make some Stalkers. We can easily do that. And then here comes a little bit of the greedy play, moving right in there. And oh, there goes the Nexus going down. This is something that you see pretty commonly. Again, notice I'm selecting these. Can you see this? Maybe not. Maybe it's a little bit fuzzy on the stream. Any of you watching the archives are getting it in HD, so that should be crisp and clean. But look, Stalkers coming out at a very, very snail pace. Now, Bobby Tizzle is not going to be doing any harassment with these Banshees. He's just building them. But we are noting this big issue of just not really that many units popping out. Now, what are the 2 ways that we scout as Protoss? Well, actually, the 2 ways that we scout as anybody, right, as any race. 1, the obvious one. We build an observer, or we scan, or we run an overseer in, and we look at what exactly he's doing. That's fine. Second most friggin' important one, this is the important one, is scouting the front. Going to the front of his base and saying what is there. For instance, if you get to the front of his base and you see a lot of Marines and Marauders, you don't need to get a lot of observers, because you know he's just not going to be getting Cloak Banshees that fast. If you get to the front of his base and you see like a handful of Marines, like maybe 4, and that's it, probably want to be getting 2 observers because he's teching. Even if you're wrong and he is not getting Cloaked Banshees, you have plenty of leeway with your 2 observers. It's not like you're screwed because you got 2 observers, because he's teching. He only had 4 or 5 Marines. If he tries to move out and attack, your 2 gateways should have been more than enough to defend. And Ghost Hawk was not really particularly doing enough of that. I would really like to see an observer. This build that Ghost Hawk's doing is fine. If you get 1 observer and you see him going for kind of a large Marine-ish force, like maybe trying to do Marine tank push, you can do exactly this. Huck does this with great success quite often, where he cuts gateway production, starts getting Colossi, and takes a Nexus very, 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 very quickly. And that works just fine and dandy. But if you've ever played against Taran players who really embrace how unbelievably obnoxious Banshees are, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. Now, I want you just to note how this battle ends up panning out. Look, here's the third Colossus coming up. No range yet. So here's the battle. Now, look at how quickly all these units that shoot up will end up dying. Right? Look, the Colossi are doing just oodles of damage, but then there goes one Stalker, there goes the Sentry, there goes the Stalker again, getting taken down, and suddenly we have 3 Colossi. Our big, scary, monstrous units, right? The ones that people build their whole armies around, that's all that we have left. And don't they look vulnerable? Aren't you starting to see how vulnerable these Colossi are? Honestly, 4 Colossi and maybe 4 to 6 Stalkers and some Zealots is not nearly as scary as 2 Colossi and a big-ass ground army. Colossi are not quite what's scary. It's the combination of a few Colossi with a lot of ground units that makes it very terrifying. Now, Ghost Hawk, look at this. Look how high his money is. Look at how high his money is. He's trying to make things as quickly as he friggin' can. But he just cannot quite get them up fast enough. Banshees deal a lot of damage. Very, very tough to deal with these kinds of early pushes. And honestly, if you end up scouting your opponent with your observer and you see that he is going for this style of push, just Zealots and Stalkers holds it. Just Zealots and Stalkers. I promise you. I've dealt with this 1,000,001 times. And I actually go 1 gateway, expand, and then I go observer, gateway, or should I say robo, gateway. And then if I get the observer in and I see what's up, then I just start chrono boosting my gateways and get a lot of Zealots and Stalkers, and you can hold it. You can hold it quite adequately, and it ends up being fine. But this is the kind of, again, the addiction to the big, monster, scary units. And it's not that Ghost Hawk is some sort of terrible player who's doing something gimmicky. 2 Warp Gate, big Colossus beats a lot of stuff. And when players don't go Banshees, it works marvelously. It is a fantastic way to open. But again, people are undervaluing just detection and scouting in this game. As just a very, very simple example, there are a lot of Protoses, there's a lot of Tarans who will just go Marine Marauder. Mass friggin' Marine Marauder. Especially at the start. 3 barracks, and then they expand, or they'll expand and go 4 barracks or something like that. Maybe some of you Tarans are that. Do you know how easy it is to DT rush these players and just kill them? They just don't value detection. And you know what happens? Even if you get the DT and they don't immediately lose, which most of them do, they can't move out of their base because they just don't have any detection at all. So, but you know that those 3 barracksing players, or those early expand 4 barracksing players, are beating a lot of other stuff. But again, you have to worry about, it's the small set that smashes you that you really got to worry about, not this huge chunk that you're beating pretty consistently. So I would say that if Ghost Hawk had macroed marginally better, maybe focused a little bit more on the Stalkers instead of the Sentries and the Zealots, he could have been quite a bit more fine. So now I think that we're going to go a little bit longer on this daily. I want to do two more dailies. I just want to see, let's see, some of these are quite long. Here's, oh god, Lost Temple Banshees are so obnoxious on this. Have not seen this game. We're going to do a little bit of blind thought to Pork My Pig. Couldn't have chosen a better random name than that. Now, it's so important that we talk about little things, such as, is Pork My Pig making units on time? Good, he has the rally set, excellent. Throwing down that supply depot right on time. Going refinery first, then gas. Alright, good. So he is going to be going for quite fast Banshees. Here's our hero, J Hammy. Go, J Hammy. J Hammy fighting. Should be throwing down a pylon about now. Perfect. Looks like the barracks is going to be able to get thrown down in time. And then there should be like the fastest factory known to man coming up by Pork My Pig. But either way, Jay Hammy is doing some very, very good stuff here. Notice the little wall he's making at his front. If Hellion Drop comes, it cannot pierce into the front. Kiwikaki does this a lot, where he'll just like make a wall starting here, and he'll just like cascade all the way down, and he'll be blocked off. Jay Hammy's playing quite well at this point in time. Pork My Pig now making the factory. I'm not going at ×8 speed because I want to look at things like, are units coming out on time? Are things coming out reasonably quickly? Jay Hammy, good. 2 gateways and the fast robo. Chrono boosting the warp gate, getting more pylons, not getting blocked. There's a sentry coming out, excellent. Pork My Pig, you bastard, getting 2 poor Banshee. I honestly, like, have no clue how to stop 2 poor Banshee. If I'm on this map, it's just the most painful thing in the universe. It's because this cliff, they can always retreat over this cliff, drives me insane. Moving right along. Okay, good. Getting an Immortal out. This is an absolutely fine thing to do. I think that if you are feeling real comfortable with your play, you can cut that Immortal no problem at all. If you are maybe like a high platinum, low diamond level player doing this build, or, you know, of course, obviously lower than that works fine too, you can just get the Immortal by default and just play it safe and try to focus on other things. Again, cutting that Immortal and going for the Observer and defending with just a small amount of gateway units, that's something that would help you get from like 1600 to 1800, right? That's a little thing that might bump you up, but it's fine to do it in this order. And there's the very fast expansion coming up. Perfect. So I can already see exactly why we're going to start having quite a bit of trouble. Seen a lot of sentries get produced. Quite a lot of sentries get thrown down. Little bit concerned about that. Yeah, oh, there's the Banshees getting thrown down. Now, at this point in time, you probably need to do some drastic response to account for the fact that you see 2 Banshees. Because note that Pork My Pig really did straight up rush his ass off to get these Banshees up and to get Cloak up. I mean, look at this. Only has 4 Marines. No add-on at the factory. This is really fast Banshee, and Jay Hammy saw it. He sees this coming out. So he's going to be positioning all his units quite well. But at this point, I actually begin making more gateways or something like that. I'm not necessarily a big fan of throwing down cannons. It just seems too static. And there really is nothing wrong with skewing yourself significantly to dealing with these Banshees. And then, of course, the spread out. And it looks like Jay Hammy's doing a pretty good job of not falling for it, right? This might actually be the perfect ending game for this daily. This is like the perfect game. How fantastic. And what makes Banshees so damn annoying is that they actually just kill things really fast. So if you don't have a lot of units, he just kills you. But look at that. Zoning this one, trying to block him in. But we can see that Jay Hammy's macro is suddenly starting to slip a little bit. This macro is really going to be the key to holding this off and getting the more gateway units, more observers. Nothing wrong with getting a lot of observers. Absolutely nothing wrong. I would even probably take both these gas geysers reasonably quickly. And I think the important thing is to note the difference between 2 port Banshee and 1 port Banshee to sort of recognize. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit because that's probably the last. It's probably a little bit more subtle of a point. But, you want to return back to these default positionings, right? This is good. This is good right here. This is not good, right? Having them all the way to the side, because then suddenly Banshees come in. Oh, hey, look, 3 probes. Just a few seconds of not paying attention, and you get punished really, really, really hard. How many observers are there? Exactly 2. How useful would it be if we had 4 observers? So we could plant 1 here, and we could plant 1 way out here. That would help a ton. Also, we could... these gateways are a little bit late. This forge seems a little bit haphazardly thrown down. I don't know if we can necessarily make that much use out of it. Looks like we're starting to slowly lose a handful of buildings, and really, Pork My Pig is playing this out exactly the way he should. Continuing to make Banshees just like non-stop, just super insane Banshee production. And honestly, one thing that is very, very effective is to slowly tech up to Templar. Feedback on Banshees is the most effective thing to do. For all time, really. You can rely on largely Stalkers and a few Zealots and Sentries to kind of stay alive and hold on. But really the feedback is going to be what lets you just demolish the Banshees. Now, I want you to just think about what I just said. Feedback demolishes Banshees. For any of you who didn't know, High Templar have this spell called Feedback. They don't just have Psionic Storm. And Feedback deals the amount of damage that unit has mana. So if it has 150 mana, it'll deal 150 damage to that unit. Yeah. So, I think most people can start to understand why it demolishes Banshees. Some of those weakened Banshees, one Feedback, boom, just done. And Feedback has a good range. It's instant. It's an awesome spell. If you're having trouble holding Banshees, his army literally is half stuff, half Banshee. If you can get 6 Templar up and just rip through like all those Banshees, that's half his army dead. It doesn't even matter that you perhaps didn't have that many Stalkers. Really does not matter that much at all. You're going to be just fine. Now, see, this is an excessive defense. And notice this positioning. We could position a cannon here and here. I like them kind of like that. And it creates this kind of big wall. If he swings up here, he gets surrounded. We put cannons 1, 2, put another cannon 1, 2, kind of zones him. So the only places he can kind of enter are in these regions that I'm boxing right now. Planning back here is really just only defending this. That is not good. You want to have a defense that kind of like blocks off of this. But I am delighted that we coincidentally stumbled across this specific replay because this is the truly painful aspect of dealing with Banshees, is coping with this kind of crazy harassment. Now, I just want to note a few things that are happening in terms of organization. Notice how the whole army's showing up. Why are the Zealots and the Immortals here? Those should always be hanging out at the front. Very common mistake to sort of fall into, but it's a mistake we don't want to make. All these are just grouped into one control group. You don't want to be in one control group against Banshees, want to split that up. And it's so easy to have that happen, I would almost bank that Jay Hamley's APM probably dropped a little bit. When this Banshee harass started happening. We can even see his current is well below his average. And this is just so brutal to deal with. And yeah, and see, this is another thing that happens decision-making wise. So Jay Hammy probably could have repelled this with a little bit better macro and a little bit better timing of getting these warp gates up. A little bit better. But this is what you don't want to do, which is what I call like the panic attack, is where you just sort of go, I hate just die! And you just box your units and go. Because while you're boxing your units, you begin to lose your main, and then you slowly start to advance in here. I really wish Jay Hammy would just push, because this would be the perfect time for an example. Just note that this army is almost certainly going to crush this little Marine Marauder force that was at the front before it ended up moving away. Looks like we will get some free Banshee kills. That is just wonderful news. Looks like these Banshees are still doing a little bit of damage. Yeah, Jay Hammy just falling a little bit behind on his macro. Very understandable mistake. But this is like the serious, dangerous mistake that you want to do. What trigger did Jay Hammy use to move out here? What was the motivation for doing that? It is this weird urge in your body when you are very frustrated with something to want to box everything and attack. And I understand how overwhelming that urge is. I understand that every bone in your body just wants to be like, I hate Pork My Pig. I want to kill him now. That's fine. We'll rewatch the replay afterwards and note, looking at this, this is just the usual boxing in, going because I just really want to win right now. And as usual, the Banshees are wreaking havoc in the main. We see 2 more Robos getting thrown down here. Immortal sadly ends up falling. Now, because J Hammy suffered some a little bit of early losses, this isn't going quite as well as it could have. But it's the fact that even if this attack was as crisply as it could have been executed, all these Banshees could just easily fall back, do the cleanup damage, and win the game. This is what drives people bonkers. Because this is the way it feels. It feels like, well, I was getting harassed all game long, and then I had a huge army and attacked him, and he just crushed it. And then he went back to harassing me. And of course we see J Hammy jumping up into the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars range, because there's really nothing he can spend his money on, because he now has one more gateway left. So, in summation, Banshees are annoying. But there's one thing I wanted to touch on after the analysis. I'm just gonna say it to make sure I remember it. 2-port versus 1-port. 2-port versus 1-port. So in that game, it's really important to note that J Hammy could have done a little bit better macro, and he would have been fine. Like, really, the Banshees would not have done that much damage. Nothing wrong with getting more observers. As Drewby said, people tend to treat Starcraft 2 as a one observer per game, where they make the observer and then they make the fancy units. Yeah. Nothing wrong with making lots and lots and lots and lots of observers. They're really, really, really good. Also, we just need to position ourselves properly. We want to kind of have a cup where we have units on the outside edge of our main and the outside edge of our expo. And if he tries to move in between, we can close in on him. We don't necessarily need to have units everywhere and stuff behind our minerals. Just kind of out poaching. And if you have extra observers, you always know where your army needs to be. You can position the observers well. And honestly, this is part of the reason why if I'm getting a fast robo, I like to get the observer kind of quickly and send it to his base. If I'm actually worried that he's going to be getting a cloaked Banshee, like fast, again, if I scout the front and I see a few Marines, I actually just leave the first observer in my own base and then send the second one. But still, I'm getting two. And just a good focus on gateway units to defend. Nothing wrong with Zealots. They're great units. Zealots and Stalkers. Don't need to get anything too fancy. Don't forget, Zealots and Stalkers really are some of the highest DPSing units in the game, and you get them right at the start. Ah, fantastic. Now, I did want to distinguish between 2-port and 1-port, which is something a lot of people do not do. Actually, between 1-port with Cloak, and 2-port. If he just goes 1-port Banshee, there will be a Banshee that's just kind of like around, and you're going to have to repel it. It's going to be marginally annoying. Most people, I think, have finally gotten to the point where they're comfortable with that sort of stuff. Now, if he goes 1-port Cloak, same thing. Just get your observers, position your Stalkers well, or if you're Zerg, position your Spore Crawlers or your Overseers well. If you see him teching, just get an extra Queen. That's going to be awesome, right? He's not going to be coming with a Marine push anytime soon because he's teching, right? Getting a good amount of Queens is going to be a good decision as Zerg. Yeah, and if you have 2 Queens and an Overseer, you're fine. Or even just, 2 Queens and a nearby Spore Colony, you're fine. But against the 2-port Banshee, that, I think, is where a lot of people tend to have the breakdown and the confusion. Because 2-port Banshee is an outrageous investment. I actually just want to go back to the start of this game and just show how much Pork My Pig wasn't really able to have anything at all. And people mess this up all the time. They see the 2-port Banshee. They hold themselves up defensively and then have this mass panic where they're also worried about an attack at the front. I mean, there's just nothing else coming for quite some time if your opponent opens up 2-port Banshee. Yep, see, here's this 2 starports going down. There's 1 tech lab. There's the 2nd tech lab. There's 1 Banshee. Now, I just want you to know, 3 Marines. There's Marine number 4. There's the Banshees coming out. He has the 2nd racks. Let's even just keep the unit production station open. There's these 2 Banshees, and Pork My Pig sort of advancing forward, picking this off. That's actually very good by him. Jeez, he can still only really make Banshees and Cloak. And look, he is dead broke on money. He has 6 Marines right now. And Protos has like an expansion, has like all this money, he can have all these Stalkers, his Observers out. the army literally is a Banshee army, period. And there's a third barracks coming up. And now the command center is starting to get started. But still, 10 Marines is not that many Marines, man. That is a pretty damn small-ass army. And I'm not saying that you should move out there to attack anytime soon, but I'm saying that that's something you should consider. That if you see 2 poor Banshees, you should say, cool, I only have to worry about Banshees. That is it. Just Banshees. You know, it's if somehow it's like, you know, a double Hellion push, like they go reactor on the factory and they push with a lot of Hellions, and then a Banshee comes up really fast. Ooh, that's kind of intense. There's a lot of action going on. And then when you finally repel that, oh goodness, maybe I might have to worry about like him having medevacs because he has the reactor and he can do a swap and then he can get some Marauders. You know, there's like a lot of next stuff that can happen if you kind of just whip up one Banshee without Cloak. But with 2-port Banshee with Cloak, jeez, it's just Banshees you got to worry about. That's it. It is only Banshees. That's why I recommend this tech to Templar, the sort of gradual tech to Templar. You're not going to be expanding to a third anytime soon. And you just feedback the hell out of them, and you win pretty damn easily. It is effective. Never. Always remember, if he is doing he cannot be doing 2 scary things at once. He cannot both be going 2-port Banshee and be getting huge Marine Marauder armies. He can't be doing both. People tend to treat it as though they can, but don't do that. So I'm gonna take some questions. Oh yeah, from Sanibel asks, Day 9, what about going Phoenix against Banshee? Is it more effective than a few Stalkers? A big reason I have been steering a little bit clear of Phoenixes is that I haven't quite made it work against the player who just goes for the Marine the Marine Banshee push. That I've been having a decent amount of struggle with. If I get the such a specific game I'm thinking of. Phoenixes, I'm still torn on. I have dabbled with them a little bit. It's still kind of hard to get the Phoenixes to do what you want them to do. They obviously do a lot of damage to the Banshees, but my big concern with that is that if I do get these Phoenixes, let's say I get Phoenixes, right? Let's say I start getting Phoenixes. What if he went 1 port, 1 Banshee, no Cloak, and I get Phoenixes? My Phoenix suddenly doesn't really have that much use. So I might have to maybe get a lot of them. I mean, if he goes 2-port Banshee, now I have to make kind of a lot of Phoenixes. And then after that initial push, like after I hold off the Banshees and all that jazz, it's the next stage that I'm really worried about. There was a game I played not long ago where I'd early expanded and I just kind of went, I wonder how Phoenixes will do. And it did decently well at holding off the Banshees. I still ended up losing some probes and got a little bit embarrassed, but it was afterwards when he had his huge Marauder Marine force, and I had like 4 Phoenixes, and I actually couldn't do jack, right? He had a Raven, mainly Marines, and then a handful of Marauders, and I had like 10 Stalkers and some Phoenixes, and like, Phoenixes just did like nothing. I kind of like the decision to go for the Templar because the feedback not only helps against the Banshees, but then you can storm, right? You see how that transition sort of flows well? I mean, maybe if I was going Phoenix and then into Colossus, I know that mix works quite effectively, but I don't like Colossi at all. I actually think they're a shitty unit. They're really, I don't like Colossi. They're kind of grody. So yeah, let's see here. Oh yeah, AJ Prax says, Day 9, when dealing with Banshees, especially 2-port, using Stalker Sentry Observer for defense, how do you find an opportunity to take your army out of your base to go on the offense without losing your whole mineral line? Well, I actually said your whole bleeping mineral line, which I think is accurate. Again, with that amount of Banshees, you need something that can block it, like literally get it to just totally go away. So for me, that is Phoenixes, like very late Phoenixes. because that'll shut it down completely. I personally use Templar. And I actually get cannons real late. So, Stalkers with Blink are also really effective. But it's quite nice to get, like 2 cannons up in your main and at your expo. Once you're at like 95, 100 food, and then you take a third really fast. And then if he comes in, you can warp in a Templar and just feed back very, very easily. Again, you need to have the observers sort of positioned. I rely more on what I see on the minimap and positioning my units as opposed to the direct obvious counter. So, let me state what I mean by that. There's the in-game counter and then the out-game counter. Actually, I fucking hate the word counter. There's the in-game way to deal with it and the out-game way to deal with it. For instance, if I see, or like medevac drops, what's a good in-game way to deal with that? Get Mutalisks to fly to wherever the drop is going and kill it off. What's the out-game way to deal with that? The out-game way to deal with it is to look at my mini-map so well that I always see the medevac drop coming so I can position my infestors and my queens appropriately. Hey, now we're talking. That's the sort of thing I like. I don't want to spend in-game resources unless I have to. So for me, how do I move out? Well, I really start moving my army and my observers around until I can really see things. Obviously, I can get Phoenixes and just kill the Banshees and make them want to go home. Obviously, I can get the High Templar, but I want to introduce the idea of just using that sight range. I'm going to have to take some of that delicious NyQuil. Oh, my God. Oh, yeah. Oh, Blink Stalker, also very effective technique. Blink Stalker, actually, against any flyer is excellent. Excellent. Crawl85 asks an excellent question. What is the best way to learn how to read that initial scouting? I've given up on scouting, giving me any information other than the enemy's base location, as I can't sufficiently read it. So I actually want to bend this question a little bit. You heard me say things like scouting the front. It's really important to scout the front. You heard me use the example of if you see a big force of Marine Marauders, you know Banshees can't be coming. If you see 3, 4, 5 Marines, Banshees could be coming. But what's really useful to do is, and the issue that is brought up here by Crawl is, how the hell do I know if he's going Banshees, or if he's going tank push, or if he's going Thor drop, or if he's going just, like, some sort of fast expand? Like, how do I know? Well, what I generally do is I group things. So I want to have one response that deals really well with any sort of early Marine-ish play. And then I have another group that's kind of like fast Hellions and Vikings. I know it sounds weird, but there's a way to do it, but it's not important. The important thing is that there's a group with like fast Hellions or Viking play, and that's how I deal with this. And there's this other group that's like fast Banshees, fast tank pushes, right? So I kind of have the Marine Marauder group. I kind of have this weird harassment, obnoxious group. And then I have like the big meaty pushes with tanks and Banshees. So I'm going to call those groups A, B, and C. So when I go to the front of his base, I'm not actually necessarily saying, oh my god, is he doing specifically like a 17 racks fast stim? Or is he going combat shield expand? Or is he getting 2-port rate? I'm not doing anything that ultra specific. I'm just saying, is he doing A or B or C? And if I'm pretty sure he's doing something in the C group, I have a way to play that crushes everything in group C. Might not be good against B, might not be good against A, but I know it's great against group C. You're kind of starting to see what I mean? You know, like if you know, it's kind of like if you see your opponent teching in Zerg vs. Protos, like Protos buddy is getting really fast cybernetics core, and you don't actually see him chrono boosting his warp gate, you can pretty safely just kind of go Hydras and get a good amount of Hydras, assuming he's one basing. Because even if he is doing a delayed warp gate, or a fast Colossus, or Phoenix, that whole group gets crushed by a lot of Hydras. If you see him chrono boosting like crazy, or if you see him like trying to do some sort of early expand or something like that, Or if you see them like 2-gating, that other group, maybe you want to make more Zerglings with speed, right? Maybe you can't go for the Hydras because you don't have the time to do it. That's another group kind of together. But notice, yeah, 1 base fast Colossus, way different from 1 base fast Phoenix. But again, in that group can be dealt with quite well with Hydras. I'm going to take one more question. Again, it's a long daily. I apologize. I could have prepped. I could have crunched it down, but I just was sleepy. And I'm ill. Oh yeah, Fire Inside. Oh, that's a great little question. Yeah. It's like clear a little bit of the gunk from my eyes from this afternoon. I wouldn't call it an afternoon nap. I would call it an afternoon narc out. I passed out at like 1 and woke up at 6:30, man. I was dead tired. Let's see. Where the hell did that question go? Yeah, Fire Inside says, Day 9, it seems as though your analysis focuses on reactive play. Can you touch on aggressive ways to handle issues like Banshees or harassment? So it's very, 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 very specific to the race. One thing that would be absolutely ideal for you to look at is to go watch Phoenix's games against QXC in the group stages from Intel Extreme Masters that happened just this very weekend. What most Taran players do in TVT, if they see their opponent going Cloak Banshees and they have Vikings, they tend to play back. They kind of curl up in their base. And, ooh, it's scary. I don't want to move out. See, look at me. I'm even moving to the edge of the frame to really represent how cramped it can feel. But what Phoenix does is he just sends the Vikings straight forth to the opponent's base, like walks all the way there, and just starts saving up his scans. And right when the Banshee pops out, he just follows it with the Viking and kills it. And he's really active about following Banshees that are cloaked. And then in a sense, the Banshees just kind of run out of energy. It's kind of hard to describe, but go watch it and you'll kind of see it in action. I'm trying to think. Banshees are one of those units that because they deal so much damage, and most importantly because they fly, which means they can return home and defend whenever, I don't really see the biggest reason why you would want to be that aggressive against them. I'm trying to think if there are some really great examples of being counter-aggressive against Banshees. In my eyes, Banshees open up a lot of huge vulnerabilities for you. They do a lot of damage, but they're kind of like, ooh, be careful kind of units. For instance, if you go 2-poor Banshee against Zerg, and he gets enough queens to defend, like, if he just goes Queen Overseer and gets a Spire up, you get smashed. It is horrible, right? Because the mutas pop out, you can't do anything with your Banshees at all, period, and then Zerg wins. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, and maybe Taran can get a really fast Thor at the cost of, like, an expansion, right? It's pretty hairy. It's not so good. But, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I just don't really think that it's necessary to do that. In my eyes, you can poke with him and prod at him, and the instant the Banshees come up, you just kind of pull back and defend until you have something that lets you go whomp and move all the way forward again. So, for instance, waiting until you have 4 Phoenixes and a good amount of observers to spot everything. You've killed off all the Banshees, and whomp, you move forward. Or getting Templar, feedbacking things, whomp, move forward again. That sort of thing. But in my eyes, with that whomp where I move forward, most of the time would be an expansion instead of an attack. Could do that as well. But hopefully you guys learned some good stuff on how to deal with Banshees. I think the most important thing is not to overreact. Not to flip out, overreact, and convince yourself, holy shit, I need to jump back on and really start making this. I need to attack. You don't need to do any of that. If he's going Banshees, he has sunk gigantic costs into that. And you can easily deal with it by just killing them quickly with some higher tier unit. And just focusing on a good economy. So, just now for the bookkeeping for next week's Funday Monday, please submit a replay of you doing a free-for-all where you must kill your opponents in alphabetical order. That's right, you must avoid attacking the other opponents. who might be in your way if they are at the end of the alphabet. Sure, you can defend. You can always defend, that's fine. But don't you chase any of those units. If you encounter another army in the middle of the map, you have to retreat away, which means that if there's like 5 Funday Monday people in the same game, I feel bad for Admiral Aardvark, who's going to get seriously wailed on. And then probably a week from Monday, I will redo the 1 unit each in the 3v3 and 4v4, because that concept is just too good. I can't turn that down. And I'll probably do a 2-hour Funday Monday on that one. I think most of my Funday Mondays will have to end up being over an hour, just because, like, games are 45 minutes long in team games and free-for-alls. What was the other one that I wanted to note? Oh yeah, for next week's Newbie Tuesday, I want you to submit a game of you attempting to do some aggressive drop action, but it doesn't work out. Because I was just blown away at QXC's drop play against Huck at IEM. Just blown away. And rather than do another daily of show me one of you losing to drops, you know, there's a little difference. People who want to play like QXC, want to do that aggressive style of play, it can just be painful, right? You can just lose so many games in a row. QXC is a resilient person, and he max games a lot and kind of found a way to make it work. But so I want you to send me games of you trying to do drops and it doesn't work out. So whether it be a small medevac drop that just gets crushed a lot, whether you like do a drop and it doesn't do damage, you do a drop and you lose your main, you lose your whole fucking base, you trying to do like a mass drop with Zerg and it fails, maybe some warp prism action but you didn't get it to work out, all that sort of stuff, submit that. And I think that Huck will be coming on tomorrow. I hope. I think that that's accurate, theoretically. So that's going to wrap up the Newbie Tuesday. See you tomorrow, guys. Bye-bye. Peace, peace, peace. See you later, alligator.